You're tuned in to the TVL Rundown, a comprehensive weekly look at the athletics inside the Twin Valley League. The TVL Rundown is a service of B&D Buildings in Axtell and the Citizens National Bank in Greenleaf.
B&D Buildings of Axtell specializes in post-frame buildings. Give them a call for stud-frame buildings with complete concrete and electrical work included. It's one call to get the job done. B&D Buildings, specializing in post-frame building construction, plus repairs and more. Always free estimates. Give them a call. B&D Buildings of Axtell, 785-294-0147. B&D Buildings at 785-294-0147.
Another reason to make the Citizens National Bank your bank. With the century of experience, you know you can count on us for convenient banking and personal service for people you know and trust. With extended hours and online banking for all your financial needs. Another reason to make the Citizens National Bank your bank.
Welcome into the TVL Rundown as Jeff and I are chatting high school basketball now. First week in December, we are going to run through 7 of the 11 Twin Valley teams as we preview their basketball season on both boys and girls. And Jeff, we're going to start with the Axtell Eagles on the boys side, coming off that 4th straight 8-man Division II state championship just last Saturday. Expectations are just as high for the Eagles that finished 3rd out at state basketball last year.
Without a doubt, and I think there's a good reason for that. The athleticism on this team is going to be off the charts. We know the names. We know who's going to come to the table. It's just whether or not the opposition in the Twin Valley League can slow them down. And that's what we're going to see. We're really going to see the athleticism and depth of the TVL, and it all starts with Axtell, I believe.
Of course, led again this year, Brandon Schmelsley, Eli Brocksterman. You mentioned the names. I think one of the names, I was talking to assistant coach James Shaughnessy during the football season. Logan Sandman expected to take a big step up last year. Of course, Axtell boys finished 3rd at state, 22-3 record, had an opportunity there this year to win not only state in football, but basketball too as well. And not to be forgotten, on the girls' side under head coach Brad Brocksterman, girls went 9-15 last year, but I think expectations are a little bit higher this season under the second-year head coach with some experience coming back from that girls team, including Natalie Strothman and Malia Stahlbaumer, just to name 2 of them, or 2 returning starters off of last year's team.
And as you said, I think the progress there happens with the head of this team. Brad Brocksterman getting to know his players a little bit more, getting the opportunity to work with them a little bit more. And yes, this is a talented team. One name that I did want to point out was Avery Bussing. I think she has the opportunity to, at point guard, lead this team in a different direction. And each year we find a team that just improves, just gets used to their style a little bit. And I think that could easily be these Axtell girls this year.
And I think you talked about it on the boys' side. Obviously, boys is tough. Girls are always tough, too, as well. But maybe that middle of the pack this year could be interesting. Now, of course, Axtell does start off with Pawnee City, so an out-of-state opponent this coming up Friday, I believe. And then next week, the Eagles take on Valley Heights. Moving on down the line a little bit to the Centralia Panthers. Again, starting with the girls' team, I think the name that we all know is Owen Dieters led the Centralia Panthers to a heck of a season last year, but some depth in the front court, including Tatum Kramer and Cora Thompson, took some big steps last year as they'll look to continue and build off of a successful postseason last year as well.
And the thing with the Centralia girls, like you said, we talk about Owen Dieters, but that front court is going to be much more. I felt like this year, especially in volleyball, they look stronger. You know, maybe in that gym just a little bit more, and that's obviously going to help. The the off-season work is going to be big for them, and I think there was a lot of that with the Centralia Panthers. We could see a really good, really strong Centralia team.
Switching our attention now to the boys. Boys had a good season too, a strong end to the year. 16-6 was that final record before falling with a trip to go to state. But I think under head coach Nick Evans in his third year, another team in the boys classification that could easily vie for a TVL title.
And I talked to Nick Evans just a few days ago. He's extremely excited about this team. And for good reason. Again, another good football season for Centralia. Has the guys that are moving up. That senior class is going to be important for them. They need to step up, and I think they will. And Nick Evans is maybe one of the coaches we don't talk about nearly enough in this league. He is a great X's and O's guy, a great way to get the most out of his players.
And I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting as we get ready for basketball season. TVL, there is some experience, but a lot of young coaches. Evans his third year, Lynn under a new coach, Frankfurt second year head coach, Washington first year, Valley Heights, a handful of those teams. Now, looking at Centralia's schedule, kind of interesting. Well, not interesting, but starting some out-of-league opponents, Nemaha Central, St. Mary's, and then Silver Lake. Just how will that test the Panthers before they do get into TVL play?
Well, anytime you play a team that is a higher classifications, and, I don't necessarily buy into higher classification all that much because that just means you have more students. That doesn't make you any better or worse than another school. But, yeah, going to those environments and getting that opportunity, I think is phenomenal to them and gives them maybe just a little bit of a leg up as you come into TVL play.
And, of course, I'll have to throw this pitch in there. Another one of those out-of-league opponents, I believe, will be Marysville. That'll be a good game. KNDY will have their first part of January, just looking a little bit ahead on that schedule on the Centralia side of it. Moving on down the list, we're going to move to the Lynn Bulldogs. Start first with the boys team under first-year head coach Bennett Bargdale, taking over a squad that finished 13-9 last year. They do return a decent amount of starters on the boys' side with some athleticism, including Ethan Bott, Connor Oldie, Zach Hilgen, Gabe Turk, just to name a few of them. And, Jeff, I mentioned it earlier in the year. I think the Lynn boys might be one of those teams that could be a surprise team come late in the season once they get some games under their belt.
And, all right, you have sold me on these Lynn boys. I was a little skeptical, but you have sold me on these Lynn boys. I have been able to talk to Coach Bardell. I've been able to talk to a couple of players. They're bought in. They believe, and they have that opportunity, I think. One name that you brought up that I do want to mention is Zach Hilgen. Comes from a good bloodline, comes from a family that have had a pair of uncles and a dad that were big athletes for the Bulldogs. His father still has the record for most points in a game for Lynn. I believe it was 45 points in a game way back when. And, that's got to mean something. That means that he is in the gym a lot. And I think that's going to be a big factor for them.
And speak on that a little bit. I know, with that connection, especially over there, Lynn, what kind of drive does that, give those players in order to reach, good goal? And then also having that new coach that's kind of wanting to prove himself in the same standpoint.
Well, I think it's huge. There's nothing to lose for the Lynn Bulldogs. At this point, they've been a middle-of-the-pack team for a long time. And that's no slight to them. That's just the depth of this league. I think they are a team, like I said, nothing to lose. Just go out there and play every Tuesday and Friday, do your best, and let the chips fall as they will. And it's a great situation right now. Coach Bargill knows his stuff. We know that. He is a very smart coach, gets with the players, understands the players, and I think they have the opportunity to make waves this year.
And usually was doing this at the end, but want to talk about their first opponent. They come out with Onega on Thursday night, so a league game, a league opponent, someone you're familiar with. What kind of matchup are you expecting early on, kind of on both boys and girls sides, I guess, even though we hadn't chatted about them yet?
Well, I mean, the first game is always a filling out process. We know that. It's always not only what are we doing, but what is the other team doing. That one is always like that. I really don't put a whole lot of stock into these games before the break because they might come out in January a completely different team. What I'm looking for in Onega is, for both of these sides, do what you can to make yourself better. Don't worry about the other team. Get that game action, get those game legs, and just find out where you are as a team.
That's a good way to look at it, and excellently spoken as we move our attention to the girls' side under six-year head coach Trevor Kuhlman. Again, I think a team there in the Lynn Lady Bulldogs that could make some noise back with, I believe, last year's leading scorer Marcela Huerta, also Jenny Turk and Morgan Wurtz, a few names back, but I think expectations after a little bit of a run there late in the season at a sub-state run, of course, ran into the Hanover Wildcats, which we'll talk to them here in a little bit. But again, I think excitement for the girls, if what I'm seeing from the outside is correct.
Oh, without a doubt. I think their biggest factor is going to be down low. Marcela Huerta, I think, can be one of the best players in this league this year. If she stays within herself, you see a lot of frustration out of her sometimes. That's just the emotions of this game. But all of those names that you mentioned, the Morgan Wurtzes, the players that, all of those weapons that Coach Kuhlman has, there is an opportunity there. Again, I keep using that word opportunity with Lynn because it is right there. They have to make that next step this year.
And looking a little bit ahead on their schedule, we talked the Onega game, but I feel like if Lynn can start off with a win there and then roll into that Cloud County tournament, teams like Central Christian, Solomon, I think a few of those teams, again, like they had in last year, catch a little bit of a roll before early TVL, an opportunity to be sitting pretty good record-wise going into TVL action, which is always a positive. Now, a team that we always mention at the upper echelon of the league, the Hanover Wildcats. We're going to start with the girls, of course, the reigning state champions. They return, I believe, all-state player and a journeyman along with Drew Bruna down low. So, again, a loaded roster for the Hanover Lady Wildcats going into TVL. I guess, Jeff, what are the, well, I don't want to say what are the expectations. I think we kind of know that. But what are you looking for from the Wildcats coming off that championship year under head coach Chris Beichman?
The same dominance as always. It's not going to stop. We saw over the last few weeks the dominance of Axtell. I always use the words "the Eagle train." The Hanover train is just as impressive. The Lady Wildcat train is, just remarkable what they do. They do not miss a step, and I think they continue that this year. Until further notice, this TVL girls ranks runs through Hanover, Kansas, and there's no one that can tell me different.
You might as well call it how it is. I think I'm the same way on that one. Of course, fell short winning the TVL tournament last year or the regular season, but had a dominating performance again out there at state coming off, obviously good year, 22-4 last year. They are going to start, I think, an interesting matchup early on that we are going to have on KNDY as a game, but a game at home versus Nemaha Central. And I don't know what the girls team for the Thunder out in Seneca have, but when we talk about teams in our area playing upper classifications. I think this will be a good physical matchup, I think, for the Hanover girls early on in the season.
And from what I've heard about Nemaha Central, I think guard play is going to be important for Hanover. So Anna Juneman gets an early test in that, and I think that's only going to help these Lady Cats. If there are anything that they don't have ready by that date, by the end of that night, it will be sharpened. It will be tested, at least, in that game. I think that it could be a big benefit to take on Nemaha Central early.
Moving our attention to the boys' side, too, Hanover coming off an 18-6 year, kind of up and down in terms of how their schedule played out. But again, like the girls, some really good experience back players like Cameron Juneman, Braylon Mine, Tanner Bruna, just to name a few of those starting three that were back from last season. But I believe, kind of like the girls, expectations high on the boys' side under Corey Jensen, just as always.
Definitely so. And one player that I did want to mention is Braylon Mine. I don't know if you saw him at all during the fall sports season, just out of a uniform. The poundage that he has put on, the weight that he has put on, the muscle that he has put on. I don't even want to say weight. The muscle that he has put on is absolutely incredible, and that's only going to benefit his play and the team's play. I think a lot of the offense now is going to go through Mine. I think he has the opportunity to be one of the best players in the league and maybe even the state in this year.
And you bring up a good point. I was looking here at their record. The boys started 9-0 last year, ended up all their losses in TVL, 3 of them to Axtell, 1 to Centralia as well. But when you talk about the physicality, I think those 3 teams we just mentioned, Axtell, Centralia, and Hanover, the physicality that needs to be played to win the TVL, especially this year, might be at an all-time high. And, by physicality, we don't mean just throwing elbows, but just the sheer force of the effort that these boys play with.
Definitely. It's going to be an up and down the court all year long from all of these teams. I don't think you see anyone that, okay, let's just walk the ball up the court and run the box and one. You're not going to see that. You're going to see high-intensity sport the entire way, all the way up and down the court. And, Max, thank you for doing this for me, because I am excited, crazy excited now for high school basketball. We're only, as we record this, 2 days off of high school football season, and now I am pumped for high school basketball. Thank you so much for doing this for me, Max.
We always like that little extra jolt of energy, I think, when seasons do change. Now ask us again in January, and we'll probably need a 3rd cup of coffee.
Definitely so. Definitely so. Right around the TVL tournament is when there's a little bit of a lag, and then you hit the TVL tournament, and I turn into the Ultimate Warrior again. I'm shaking the ropes, ready to go.
We go through our seasons just like about anyone else. That is true. We got a few more teams here, Jeff, I want to get to today. First off, Frankfort Wildcats. We're going to start with the girls team. Again, a reigning state champion, and the Frankfort Wildcats claimed their first one last year out there at Colby. They do lose a lot of seniors, but again, one of the best coaches in the league, Brian Eppert, will again be back for the Wildcats. So I know the volleyball season didn't go quite as well, but again, I think the coaching of Brian, Coach Eppert, is going to be top tier again this season to get the Wildcats some wins.
Without a doubt. But the thing that Frankfort brings in this year is the unexpected. Because, as you said, they did lose a lot. Now you have to wonder, okay, who is going to fill those spots? Who is going to make that next step? I think they have a lot of names that potentially could do it, and we'll find out. like I said, I think the best thing that could happen for them is that no one knows. And if they can play a little bit of, and I don't want to say spoiler. You can't say spoiler after a championship run, but if they can find that next generation, boy, oh boy, they could be dangerous.
And yeah, it's not like it's kind of a chop liver season for the Wildcats. They return player, Sydney Watt, Ashlyn Donlinghouse, Tessa Parthamer. They did play some big minutes. Breely Eppert, another one of those players that played big minutes on a state championship winning team. So bringing that experience back, I think for the Frankfort Wildcats, it is going to be finding that, I believe. I don't want to use the word leader, but I think we'll kind of go to that throughout the season. Who's going to lead this girls team this year?
Definitely so. It's going to be that next person up who can step up, and all of those names have that opportunity, have that chance to be the one who can do it.
And now one of the other teams that I think this season has an opportunity to make some noise. Second-year head coach Adam Schreiner leads his Frankfort basketball team after another successful football stint, but the boys 11-12 last year, so the record might not be able to pop out to you. But if memory serves me correct, went on a little bit of a run at the TVL, had an opportunity even at Sub-State to make some noise, and they were playing some really good basketball the back half of last season before falling in the eventual postseason to Clifton Clyde.
Do you want my absolute out-of-nowhere pick for the TVL this year?
Let's hear it.
It's the Frankfort boys. I think they have been there, just out of the picture, and now it's their time to be in the picture. I think this Frankfort boys team has the opportunity, has the Jimmies and Joes. I always use that term, the Jimmies and Joes, but they have the guys that can step up to the upper echelon, the Hanovers, the Axtels, the Centralias, whatever names you want to throw out there. I think Frankfort now belongs at the top of this list.
Now I want to ask you this question, Jeff, because you've been covering the league a lot longer than me, but Frankfort, I believe this year, the only team to return all 5 starters off of last year, the only season they graduated, big man Ole Martin-Save, who played decent minutes last year for the Wildcats, but when you look at their top 9, when is the last time a TVL team that went 500 the year before returned almost 98% of the experience the year after?
Well, you're putting me on the grill there for that. I don't know where that could be, but
you don't see it very often, I guess.
No, definitely not. It is a rarity to happen, and I think it's fantastic for them. And you get those guys back, and that just means another year under the coach, another year in that weight room, another year on that court, a little bit more experience each and every time out, and I think that's their biggest factor. You can have those guys, but if those guys aren't working together and lifting together and just being together, you get no continuity. With Frankfort, that's exactly what they have, is that camaraderie, that continuity, that team effort that you're going to need to see in this Twin Valley League.
And an opportunity early in the season as always to test it. They start off, I believe, here with Lord Central Catholic on Thursday, and then right into that Wabunsee tournament, which is always a fun early season tournament there for the Wildcats. If memory serves correct, I think they won that last year, so had an opportunity to start off hot. Now, talking about the, rival down the road for the Frankfort Wildcats, the Valley Heights Mustangs on the boys' side under first-year head coach now Kenny Steinfort will look to bounce back after a 7-16 season last year. They, again, like a lot of these TVL teams, return a starting experience in Logan Gray, Royce Ekstrom, Dustin Denton, along with Max Shanks as well. And I think one of those teams that might feed off of some late-season football success early on here in the basketball season.
Definitely. Once you get those W's in your column, once you get that feeling of winning, it translates. There's no doubt it translates. This is the team that I am most looking forward to on the boys' side, just seeing exactly what they do. Because there's a lot of mystery around that team. Again, a new coach. You don't know exactly what they're going to plug in. They could really surprise some teams early on, pick up those early season wins, and just keep rolling. I'm very intrigued by this Valley Heights team.
And they'll have a tough test right out of the gate. Marysville Bulldogs, that game on FM 95.5 and AM 1570, FM 94.1 Thursday night against an upper-level opponent, a team that beat Valley Heights last year. But again, I think a very good matchup coming up there Thursday evening. Now, turning our attention to the girls' side, the Valley Heights girls, of course, fourth-place finishers last year at state basketball, under longtime head coach Jordan Brocksterman, 20-7 season last year. They, like the boys, returned some starting experience and again had success in the postseason, but led by Mia Vermitten and Kayla Smith on the front court for the Mustangs. They'll look to take a step forward and hopefully get Valley Heights back to another state basketball tournament.
And you mentioned Mia Vermette. I think she has the opportunity to really take over this league. If she can step up and play just 90% every game, and I know that's going to be a stretch because she's going to play at 100 every game, and I know that. But if she can play up to her ability, this Valley Heights team will be dangerous. And I think Valley Heights is right there, just right there. If they get that one little break somewhere in there and a team falls ahead of them or they just keep going on, this is a top team in the Twin Valley League this year.
And from the girls' side, I think, again, a team that is always disciplined under head coach Jordan Brocksterman. You know, they don't make mistakes to hurt themselves. And when you return the reigning 2A state volleyball player of the year in Ava Smith, you know the athleticism on the basketball court is going to show. And I look for the Mustangs, especially in this first season game versus the Marysville Bulldogs, to really get out and run before matches up next week with Axtell and then also Riley County as well.
Definitely, and it's all about those early season jitters. Get those out of the way, get that first game in, and figure out exactly what you are, and then roll with it. And I think that's what the Mustangs need to do. It's like an old car that you haven't had out in a while. You've just got to blow a little bit of the engine out a little bit, and then get rolling. I think that's what this team has the chance to do. Just put the pedal to the metal and keep going the entire way. And like I said, I really think they are a top team in this league this year.
Turning our attention now to the Washington County Tigers, first starting with the girls program under longtime head coach Scott Romiser. Girls last season had a little bit of a tough go on it. Again, we've talked about it, a loaded girls class this year, but 9-12 last season. They started off hot before TVL play kind of got to them. Loses some experience in the senior class, but do return at least a few starters, Jesse Hoover being one of them, along with Addie Gakel. And I know some players that played some big minutes, Mackenzie Baker and Alyssa Juneman, just to name a few for the girls team. But again, you know, probably need to take a step forward if they want to be considered in that top tier of the TVL this year, but still an opportunity, I think, to make some noise if the chips fall their way.
Well, and if you remember back, one of the biggest factors for Washington County last year is they never had that chance to have all 5 of their star players, of their big players, on the court. Mm-hmm. It seemed at one time. There were injuries, there were, illnesses, whatever it may be. They didn't have that opportunity to get together. And I think that was as big of a factor as the talent or skill level or whatever you want to say, because I think they have the skill level. It's just getting, I use that word continuity a lot, just getting all together as a team, and that's where it's going to factor in this year. Can they stay on the court and get a straight path going? I think that's where Washington County is looking, just taking that step and going straight forward again.
And again, kind of like the Lynn Bulldogs, they're going to start off in this Cloud County tournament coming up here, start of next week, I believe. And they started off good last year before running into, let me name off the teams they played to start the season last year: Smith Center, Centralia, Valley Heights, Donovan West, and Clifton Clyde. If you want to talk about a tough 5-game schedule last year for the girls, that was a tough start to the season, and looking for a better one this year.
They might as well play UConn, Duke, Maryland, any of those top teams in the girls' ranks in college rather than the 5 that they played. Because, wow, that is a murderer's row of teams to face off right away. And, yeah, I mean, we talk about iron sharpens iron. I use that a lot, I know. But when there's that much iron, you're going to get stabbed every once in a while, too.
Going to fall through it a little bit. Washington starts about the same schedule, though. Smith Center followed up by Hanover, and then a trip over to Axtell. Now starting on the boys' side, 7-13 last year, and I think kind of same story with the boys. Some experience back in Gavin LeDuc, Monty Huckett, Octavian Cardenas, and a handful of other players. My expectations were pretty high for the Washington County Tigers last year, but a 7-13 record, kind of like the girls, I just don't think ever found that footing, and looking for it again this season.
Definitely. It's going to be that early season once again. Can they get a little bit of a flow? I think Monty Huckett has the opportunity to get this team going in the right direction. I think he could be a star this year for not only Washington County, but I think in this league.
One of those players in the league, always looking for leaders, like we've talked about other teams, and opportunity there for them. I guess last one here for you, Jeff, as we kind of wrap up this overall look at the TVL. I know we've named a few teams throughout today that could make some noise in the TVL. Give me, though, your top 3 in no particular order for both boys and girls, who you're most excited, though, to watch this season. Not necessarily who's going to finish there, but you're most excited to watch play.
Well, and we spoke about it a little earlier, that Valley Heights team, the Valley Heights girls, I think really have a great team right now. And then if you're just going to go by most excited to watch, I would say Centralia. I think they have a little bit of a mix there that could be very dangerous. And then, call me crazy, but a little bit out of our jurisdiction, the D West Mustangs. Mm-hmm. I think the Lady Mustangs have those right names to get there, and a coach that has been there for a long time, and they are ready to get back into the top of this league. So yeah, if you want my 3, I think it's Centralia, Valley Heights, D West. And on the boys' side, obviously, the Hanover Wildcats have that championship mentality, and they've been there before. It seems like going to state is nearly their second home, quite honestly. Axtell is going to be there. There's no doubt. They have the athleticism. It's going to be easy. It's going to be interesting to see their early season after coming off of what was a tremendous last few weeks in football. Can they make that transition quickly? And then, fine, you've sold me on them. You've sold me on the Lynn Bulldogs. I think it's going to be a little bit of a test early on, but and maybe that's just you. Maybe I listen to you too much, Max, but you have sold me on these Lynn Bulldogs, at least as a team to watch.
And as always, all season, stay tuned to the TVL Spotlight and KNDY Radio for basketball updates, scores, and stories. For Jeff Wurtz of the Spotlight, this has been Max Blaske at KNDY. Thank you for tuning in to the Rundown. You've been tuned in to the TVL Rundown, a weekly comprehensive look at the athletics inside the Twin Valley League. The TVL Rundown is a service of B&D Buildings in Axtell and the Citizens National Bank in Greenleaf.